Well, hi.
Hi.
My name is Media Sultani, and my job is the principal of high school. Okay. For sure, each system has some strengths and weak points together. We should do our best to make our weak points change to strength. In Iran, system works like this. You study for 9 years, and then you have to choose the subject you want to study and work in for the rest of your life. Students will be divided to 4 groups: art, science, math, and human studies. This method is really useful if students choose the major which is good for them and they like it, but the problem starts when someone chooses the wrong subject. This system needs to be edited. We need to change this because day by day we see people who keep working in jobs that they don't like. This may decrease the whole society improvement. If someone is not interested in his job, you can't expect him to work well, and this will bring big damage to his life, his family, the society he's working in, and etc. What high schools can do is to make students find their real personality and find a job which matches it. This may take such a long time, so schools should start taking different tests from 7th grade so students won't make mistakes. In high schools, we should make the chance for students to visit the job which they want to follow in future.
Hi, I'm Mujafur Zandagan, a teacher of college. Firstly, in Iran, students must choose their major before entering high school. This decision is hard to make because you don't have enough information about jobs and might not be sure about your interests yet. Therefore, it is easy to make a decision that you might regret later in life. As a teacher at college, I've heard of students that are still doubtful of the path they have chosen. There are even students that plan to change their major because they believe to have chosen the wrong one. Various problems are caused by this as they have to study the subjects of the other major and pass the examination again. Secondly, one thing that I disagree with about the curriculum in Iran is that students are forced to study subjects that are irrelevant to their major. I deem some of those subjects beneficial, even necessary, but some others are just putting more pressure on students. The more convenient approach to this is making some of those courses optional and instead adding courses that help students get a boost in their college studies. Furthermore, in this age of technology, our lives and problems are changing rapidly. Here rises the need to add courses that help us introduce students to those issues. Thus, students can be effective in resolving them. If we modify the curriculum by applying the mentioned solutions, I believe it will become more productive. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Elna Saftachi, the National Secretary of Education. Dear Madam President, as a National Secretary of Education, firstly, I would like to call attention to the increased literacy rates. In the last 20 years, literacy rates have gone up by 16%, which is a very prominent progress. In 2016, we became the 47th country in general literacy rates. Currently, the government serves free education up to the end of 6th grade. If the Ministry of Education gets more budget, then we will be able to increase the number of free educational years provided. Also, if we reevaluate our textbooks and teaching methods, it will result in an eye-catching improvement. Not to mention the current curriculum. We need to reinforce schools' art and sports programs so that the students will be able to learn and get pleasure from their daily school lives. We should also try to get assistance from countries with high literacy rates and try to reach our goal with collaboration in order to strengthen both our international bonds and educational rates. At the end of the day, it all goes back to budget from the government. Madam President, with cooperation between the government and Ministry of Education, I'm sure we can advance in all needed areas. Thank you for your attention.
Hi, I'm Golden Zikepoli, and I'm the Teachers Organization President. As the President of Teachers Organization, I would like to have some changes in our educational system. Our educational system has some main problems that I can clearly see them, such as children are having stress for their least important exams because of the pressure of schools and teachers. Not having good free schools in our country. Our public schools do not have a good condition in teaching. People who have money and can afford a private school can learn more subjects, good behavior, and art, but others can't. At ninth grade, kids are allowed to choose a field from four main fields: science, mathematics and physics, human studies, and art. There are some questionnaires to understand which field is better for you in some schools, but kids mostly choose their field without any experience or idea about it. At the end of 12 years of education, kids have a big exam called concours, which is only 4 hours, but it can affect all their lives. Our children will be classified by their exam results, and one with the better marks can go to better universities than others. As the president of Teachers Organization, it may not have any problems for me that kids spend their life on reading for this exam because a lot of our teachers earn a lot of money for the classes they put for this exam. But unfortunately, I can see people who wasted their time studying for this entrance exam and only because of an illness, they were unable to pass the exam as much as they read for it. I think it would be really better if our kids had the opportunity to experience their future job before choosing it, and they had more information about their study branch. By the way, I think it would be great if we could remove the university entrance exam and replace it with other ways for entering the university, such as entering with kids' report cards, marks, or other ways. With these kinds of small differences, we can have a better society with less stress and more happiness. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. I'm Madam President. I'm Panis Darasui, the Provincial Governor. We know that our educational system has advantages and disadvantages. What I want to discuss and hope to make a change in is reconsidering some of the subjects taught in our current school curriculum. In majority of educational system in the world, other than the usual subjects such as mathematics, physics, biology, literature, and so on, students learn to participate in other individual or team programs including music, theater, art crafts, sports, and etc., as well and with the same level of importance and attention. Here, unfortunately, since the students want to continue their education after high school, and the only way to get to that is through entrance exam, we witness schools being focused only on a list of subjects required in this exam, without considering that each student has her or his own interests and talents which may not be included in that list. So students grow to become very knowledgeable in some fields of science, but know very little about physical and mental health and social skills. So they mostly become competitive in an unhealthy way, but have no clear idea for their ambition. What I believe is that in Iran, we need to get these excluded subjects back in the school, and governments need to be more careful, helpful, and with their budgetary plans as much as the schools officials need to be careful and decisive with the staff they hire so that the teachers are professionals who put students their highest priority. We need to act more objectively with our curriculum and educational plans. It will also help if universities each took their own entrance exam based in the majors that students want to apply for and gave them extra credit for them background activities in the specific subject. But that's another matter which we should discuss another time. Thank you for your attention.
Hello, um, Madam President. I'm Shukufa Eshraqi. I'm State Department. As a matter of fact, correction of educational system is necessary because graduates from high schools or even universities have so many problems in real work situations. They're not familiar with working situation and employer demands. What they did learn in universities or high schools are mostly theoretic, but the employers prefer a graduated with practical skills. For example, a graduated engineer should know a lot about practical skills. So definitely, we need some changes in our educational system. some parts of our educational system should change. I think practical and up-to-date trainings are missing. For example, not enough lab work, not enough field studies, and no correlation between academic subjects and real society problems or industrial problems. State Department is most responsible department. 1,000 of staffs work for our department. If they had been trained perfectly, their working outcome would be much better and the state government benefit more. And the national satisfaction increases as the result of the government well-trained staff. The overall outcome would be much more satisfactory and the government faces less waste of national sources. Therefore, much more benefits for the whole nation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Hello, Madam President. I'm Yaslu Wafi and I'm the ambassador to the UN. Iran's educational system has its own flaws for sure, but unfortunately these flaws have been going on for too long and we need to fix them. Our biggest problems are we don't teach our students how to learn. Instead, we teach them how to take exams. The standardized test at the end of high school puts a lot of pressure on the students, and the problem with the test is that it doesn't have much to do with what you like and what you want to do. Also, most of our talented students have to put their talents aside to focus on their studies so that they can enter a good university. But still, to ensure our children benefit from a minimum standard of quality educational services, UNICEF and the Ministry of Education will work together to establish a robust and reliable system of educational monitoring, evaluation, and planning that assesses educational equity, proposes improvement plans, and monitors their progress. Thank you for your attention.
Hello, my name is Kherad. I'm a police. Educational system in Iran should change because of its flaws. Here are 3 serious issues that I think are in need of change. The most important lessons are the ones that schools spend the least amount of time on them. These days, the school's curriculum is focused on competition more than group work and social manners. Students spend hours in school studying subjects that they might not even use in the future, but they only learn them to pass exams. Second, in our country, most of the schools measure students' intelligence by their skills in mathematics and science. And the fact that everyone has a different skill is completely ignored, and having a higher score in math is more important than being a good member of society. The university entrance exam is the only aim of a high school student in Iran, which is not good because students have to study for a very long time in order to get accepted in a good university, and the amount of pressure and stress that they have to bear is unnecessary. Because of concours, many teenagers have to put their other interests aside for almost a year so that they can study harder. The solution is to let students experiment and discover their skills. Instead of making them become who we like them to be, let them express themselves to become what they want. We should always remember that every person is different from others, and not everyone have to be doctors or professors. As Einstein said, if you judge a fish by its ability in climbing trees, the fish will always remain a failure. So the educational system has to stop measuring students' intelligence by ignoring their special skills. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Aida Sadi, speaking as a president of college. Each year, by analyzing new college students, I fight for changing the educational system more and more. As a college president who understands the impacts of problematic system, I can say the most challenging downside of this education is not only the unuseful courses, but also the way they are taught. For instance, science high school students learns basic biology as a difficult and not useful course by a teacher who just explains what is written in organized books. But when this student takes the entrance exam, which is the second main problem, and starts college, all things will change. There is no organized shortened source for biology. and each teacher has a total different way for teaching same subject. That's the point where our students get confused. Most of the college students have trouble getting used to the system in first year or even until they graduate college. This whole matter springs from raising the students spoiled and dependent to teachers. We need to give them the chance in high schools to study, learn, and discover themselves so that they find the usage of the things they are learning. This way, we are preparing them for not only college, but also a successful life in future. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rojin Fuzandagan. I'm speaking as a high school student. Everything in the world has some flaws, but in some, these flaws are bigger. In the schools of Iran, we study many useless lessons, but they don't teach us how to live, how to love, and how to think. Because in our country, the most important purpose is to get into the universities by studying so hard and getting good ranks in the entrance exam. Due to the importance of the entrance exam, we ignore most of the talents we need to live in the future. For example, most of us don't know even how to cook a fried egg. Most of the schools don't even care what will happen in the future of these talented students. This entrance exam has got a huge business in Iran. Unfortunately, when the TV gets on, most of the times, 2 out of 7 channels are talking about how to get into the universities. Some teachers make easy solutions to solve the questions in the exam without even knowing the question. Due to the fact some of the students that get into the universities are not good enough. The worst part of this exam is that you study 12 years and one day we show are you suitable enough to get into the universities or not. And that's not fair. Another huge problem in our educational system is that they want us to predict our abilities and interests in the future. And we must choose between arts, human science, experimental science, and math. Most of the students are not sure from their fields in the high school, so they get nervous. If in Iran we had a year that we could experiment some of the jobs, it would be so much easier for us to decide which field is ours. I suggest the Ministry of the Education to hold a talent IQ and knowledge exam instead of a knowledge exam. And I suggest you to first introduce the jobs and the fees and then asking us to choose between. Thank you.
Hi, Madam President. I'm Sawa Rafi, the teacher of primary. Unfortunately, in Iran, the public view of the elementary period of sight is superficial and unconscious. The group believes that primary school educators have a lower level of scientific information than other educational courses. In the view of this, the activities of primary school teachers are at a single level, a way that parents and other people can do related activities. In this way, the primary teacher sits in position shaken and there is not enough motivation for him to teach. Therefore, it is necessary for educational planners to come up with appropriate solutions to the health of this inappropriate atmosphere and introduce the real status of the elementary teacher and elementary education to society. Now, I have some suggestions for teachers of the primary. 1. Provide general objectives for each lesson and provide students with a pre-class and teaching in order to prepare students. 2. Formation of a scientific classroom consisting of students who are susceptible and weak and supervised by their activities. 3. Introduction to various teaching techniques. 4. Use the principle of psychology and counseling before starting teaching to motivate the students. 5. Use educational aids. 6. Review and receive suggestions from students on how to teach. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Zahra Ahmadi, a large company president. Dear President, yes, I think we do really need to change the curriculum in the near future. When I look at my own company, I can sometimes see some of my subordinates arguing with each other and having some problems with working in their groups. So this problem comes from their studies as a student. Their school hadn't worked on group working as much as they needed for their future. As you know, some countries like Finland or Japan work on the life skills with the students in the primary school. Actually, they don't really read a pile of books to memorize them. This can also affect on how people behave with others in their future, and in my company, how to behave with their teammates. Another reason that I can mention for changing the curriculum is not being enough responsible for your job. These people don't accept the responsibilities that are given to them in the job. I've seen such persons in my own company, and I fired them as soon as I could. If I didn't, my company's efficiency could be diminished. As I was saying, the following people didn't do their homework and gave it to someone else to do it for them when they were students. This problem has another problem in itself, not loving and not being able to have a good connection with the lessons. Students like this don't really love to study and also can't like the topics of the lessons in their school. So in my opinion, this has to change. Students should love the lessons that are given to them, so they can be more successful in their future life. In conclusion, I think that these topics have to change about our country's curriculum, so we can have better students and a better country in the near future. Thank you for your attention.
Hi, Madam President. I'm Nazan Zahra Keshver, and I'm teacher of secondary. The students in secondary are teenagers, so they are flexible as dough, and you can shape them in any way you want. That's the reason why education is so important in these ages. In my opinion, as a secondary teacher, I think our scoring method, although sometimes doesn't help students, even puts so much unnecessary pressure and stress on them. We mustn't do something that 19.5 out of 20 and 90 out of 20 makes so much difference between two people. It would be so much better if the students could find their talents in these years. Our education system has so much focus on science and mathematics subjects, which in this way, not much attention goes to human studies and art. This resulted to having communicating skills and life skills problems because of lack of concentration on human studies and art. Another problem is in our books, which they are so much theoretical and non-practical for real life. And it would be so much better if all we learn in school would be a help in our future life. The books don't have good completion. We must have a team of expert teachers for completion, but unfortunately we don't have. That was a general review of educational system in Iran. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Nazan Nawesi, the testing company president. Today, the issue of assessing the level of a student's knowledge is one of the most important issues in students' learning. As you know, we use a 4-hour exam to measure students, which unfortunately creates a lot of problems. These problems include 1. Make students feel stressed. 2. It doesn't include the performance of entire academic education. 3. Question designers for making the exam harder would include non-standard questions. 4. In these years, the exam don't measure the student's knowledge correctly because the question is not hard. It's playing with words to make it unsympathetic in a wrong way. For example, they will change the word of book from most to a lot of for making the test harder, but that is not the way to make a question difficult. Some profitable people receive money for students through the provision of test books with false tests. And although some people will hold some expensive classes with no profit for students, and the students will pay them because of their advertisements. 6. The ministry books have many scientific problems, so that will make students to learn wrong things because they have exam with wrong questions, and that is not good. At last but not least, in my opinion, we have to change the whole way of taking exam. We have to look at all score of a student in 12 years of studying in school. After that, we have to get a standard little final exam, but not like this current wrong exam. Then we have to correct our ministry books. The final step is to stop supplying illegal books in markets, and we have to add some extra classes for relaxation to decrease mental illnesses and student stress. Thank you for your attention.
Hi, I'm Yasmin Noemi, a parent of a student. Grade 9 is a very important academic year for students in Iran. Students are expected to consider future careers and select an appropriate branch which will prepare them for relevant courses in universities. A range of branches are offered. mathematics, science, arts, and social studies. Students will spend the last few years of secondary school specializing in one of the branches mentioned above. As a parent, the responsibility of advising your child becomes overwhelming. Does one give advice based on the availability of jobs in the country, or rather on the child's interests, passions, and personality? Ideally, you want to be able to tell your children that they can do whatever they like, and the mere fact that the interest in a subject will guarantee their success in the future. But does such advice square with the realities of our society? What the system lacks is a professional counseling team comprising of psychologists and sociologists who can tell us the statistical inferences to show parents the current needs of the society, as well as rated unemployment in various jobs. Bi-monthly sessions can be arranged for parents and students to attend in order to have the confidence that the choices of career and study branch is an informed one, based on insight into both the current situation of employment in the society and self-knowledge and awareness. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Faramini Najatian, the Vice President. Dear Madam President, our education system in Iran emphasizes on the most important exam in every student's life called concours. Concours is a university entrance exam that, according to its results, students will be able to apply to universities. We have 4 main majors: 1 art, 2 science, 3 mathematics, and 4 human science in high schools. The concours of each of these majors are different from one another. Schools must make students ready to both choose their major and get their aspired results in concours. Our schools are helping students to accomplish their educational goals as students. However, still a group of students are not satisfied with their chosen major or their concours results. Madam President, I must proudly say our educational system is working hard so choosing a major becomes easier. But we must take more tests about majors from the students so that the percentage of dissatisfaction of the students from their majors get lower. And also studying for concours puts a lot of pressure on the student. So if they start getting prepared for it sooner, we can get better results and students' mental health will not be bothered by stress, or every university can get its own entrance exam. Madam President, we must spend more budget on the schools and its facilities to prevent students being endangered during unlikely events, such as earthquakes, fires, or etc. Fortunately, our schools teach students how to behave during an earthquake or fire. Madam President, some private schools in big cities spend more time on students' needs like healthcare, education in comparison with public schools in the same areas. The government must pay budgets to public schools so they can equip with features that private schools have. Therefore, all students will be able to study on an equal scale. Thank you very much.
Good evening. I'm Lian Janabzadeh, the President. I personally believe that the Iranian education system has a lot of strengths, but it has also some weaknesses. As we mentioned before, one of the main weaknesses of this education system is the concours. I feel the amount of pressure and stress high school students have to take for this exam is unnecessary and needs to change. Response to Mujan Forzandagan, college teacher, and Paria Asadi, police and Tripura Ashrawi. I fully agree with you regarding the problems that the curriculum causes, but we do not expect students to know exactly what courses benefit them. That is why we have set up a curriculum that we feel is best for the majority of the kids. As you said before, every student is different, but it is an impossible task for us to provide a curriculum that benefits everyone equally. But I also feel that students over the age of 14 know the things that could benefit them in their education. So I'm for giving high school students options on some specific subjects someone might feel is a waste of time. Response to Medya Sultani, principal of high school. Ms. Sultani, the education system in schools try their best to provide good knowledge and useful resources for students in order to make the best decision. But this big decision is as much on them and their parents as to us. Most times, Students that end up regretting their decisions are the ones who didn't communicate well enough with their peers and didn't use all the materials given to them by the schools to make this decision. But we are sure that there are some ways to make a big decision easier. And we are open to any kind of solutions. Response to the President of Teachers Organization, Ms. Kherad. The 3 years students spend to prepare themselves for concours isn't a waste of their time, but as you mentioned, it is a lot of stress. Going to university and having to compete with so many others is very stressful, but there is no need for schools to put so much pressure on teens getting ready for their entrance exams. Changing the school system to not only look at one exam but analyze everything a student has accomplished from grade 9 is a far better idea and puts less pressure on everyone. Response to Saba Rafi, the primary teacher. I agree with some points you made in your speech, such as lack of motivation for public school teachers and new teaching techniques. I believe that teaching workshops for public school teachers can help them and the students a lot in order to have a more successful class and understanding in the primary ages of education. Response to Yasna Vafi, the ambassador to UN. I'm very grateful to the UNICEF and the Ministry of Education for establishing a good and beneficial curriculum and school books for the students. This ensures a very good education for everyone living in a society. As mentioned before, schools try their best to provide knowledge and a set of skills necessary for all students, such as earthquake and fire maneuvers. But it is true that it is not practiced well enough in every part of the country. So I will discuss this issue with the Ministry of Education to come up for solutions. Response to Aida Asadi, college president. The transition between college and university is a very tough one. The amount of work and pressure between college and university increases dramatically, causing some students to have troubles adapting to their new way of studying. Fortunately, there are some ways to smoothen this transition. One thing the Education Committee can do is to bring the college books level slightly closer to the university books. This way, students adapt to this change over the course of 2 years instead of 6 months. Response to Yasmin Moini. Schools try their best to provide as much information as they can to make making this decision both easier and better for the parents and their children. But since the number of people needing help are far more than one school can help, sometimes some students don't get as much attention as they should and choose the wrong major, leading to lots of problems later on in their lives. In this particular area, the government can help a lot by providing them with help and advisement using the help of some members of the society, such as psychologists and doctors. Response to Elmas Taftachi, Secretary of Education. As Ms. Taftachi mentioned before, for a society to grow, the majority of the members of that society have to have a good educational level, meaning they need to go to school for at least 9 years. But unfortunately, in countries like Iran, where a number of people can't afford going to school and need to start working at a young age, some people don't get the chance of attending school until the end of the 9th grade. Since this is a very important subject in the growing of a country, I believe that spending more money on education and increasing the educational budget is a wise thing to do, because in the long term, this money spent will have a very good effect on the whole country and will pay off very well. Response to Pani Gharesui, Provincial Governor. Ms. Gharesui, as you said before, it is very important for students to have some of their passions in the school curriculum and not only focus on the subjects like mathematics and biology. By changing the university entrance exam system, we will be able to include these courses such as art or theater in the school daily program. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The speeches from our side are finished. Should we?
Okay, we'll go ahead with ours. Just a second.
Now we talk about education reform. Now, in technology, we have to state that have students design their own quality criteria, develop framework, help them understand and acknowledge their own skills. Now, education change. Education should be about learning and interacting rather than learning skills to pass a test or to score high in the grade book. This can be possible
with changing around the educational system methods. Now in training. Better training for both teachers and administrators in how to deal with disruptive students and support from administrators in removing these students from the classroom when necessary would go a long way towards improving achievements. Intellectual. Stop thinking of education in terms of content and start thinking of it in terms of intellectual habits. Special classes. General education and special education teachers working together more effectively to help special education students be more successful in general education classes.
Hi, I'm Abigail Meredith, and I'll be talking about the educational reform. The education reform in high school. The performance of high schools around the country receiving a significant amount of attention from state and federal policymakers, business leaders, and communities as we continue to learn more about the challenges our education system is facing moving forward in the economy. Some problems we have is that according to the editorial project in education research centers, some 7% of students actually graduate from high school on time. A little more than half of the African American Hispanic students graduate from school 4 years. Issues. Too many high school graduates are not educationally prepared for post-secondary education or training, nor are they prepared to be competitive in the workforce. In a survey by Achieving College Instructors, estimated that more than 70% of high school graduates are not ready for college courses, and 30% of first-year post-secondary education students must take remedial courses. Improvements. High schools are being asked to invent their curriculum and methodology and teachers doing leadership training and other in order to better serve needs of students, communities, and our state and local economies. In today's global economy, America's ability to compete depends on our ability to prepare high school graduates to be successful in increasingly knowledge-based economies. We need to do leadership relationships around the people that are of this region school.
I am Stephanie Cortez, and I will be presenting educational reform in the role of parent. Well, first, we have to be responsible for everyone's child, every education of our child. And it's easy to say that we care about our child's education, but we have to show it. Education reform has a lot to do with schools, but ultimately it starts at home. Better students can demand better education. You can start by making sure that our child is an actively involved student, staying on top of homework assignments and participating in class. And find out what's going on at school and be accountable as an involved parent. Start with your school. Much of the school reform that you may hear about these days is from politicians at the national level, but change can happen in just a single school too. What better place to start than the school your kids go to? Ask questions, learn about academic standards and performance, and advocate change at the school level. Talk to the principal, staff, and even the school district to find out how any concerns that you have may be addressed. Join parent groups. One dissatisfied parent voice is very loud, but many parents together can make a big difference. Across the country, parents are joining together to discuss and contribute to school reform. These groups can make a difference, most notably at the local level. In California, a nonprofit parent group, Parent Revolution, was responsible for pushing through a law known as the Parent Trigger, which gives parents power through petitions to force failing schools to turn things around. Groups like this give parents authority and power to really make a difference, leveraging policy change and holding greater influence over school board elections. Support school reform groups. Similar to parent groups, school reform groups bring the community together to advocate for school reform. With some groups, you can become involved in legislative change. Others offer educational sessions for parents and more. Find out about school reform groups in your area to see if they offer sources that might help with you and your children. Speak up. Even if you're not part of school reform groups, and especially if you are, make sure that your voice is heard. As a parent, your opinion is important. Speak with school administration, school district officials, and the school board about your concerns. Write to your local paper and find other ways to get the media involved. Ask the media to do more reporting on the local school systems. Chances are you're not the only one seeing problems and working for solutions. Be sure that your voice is part of school reform so that your needs are met. Tell other parents that there's something wrong. While there are many parents speaking up about school reform, there are still many others that are oblivious to problems in school. A new American media poll that surveyed 1,400 K-12 parents of students in southeastern states shows that although most of the states surveyed have very poor math scores, parents show no outrage or sense of urgency to bring about improvement and change. Bring the message of school reform to other parents and ask them to get involved with you to improve education. Shop around for better schools. As a parent, you can support schools that are getting it right. Although it may come with some cost, do not stuck with the public schools to which you're currently zoned. Some families choose to move to areas with schools that offer better education. Others prefer to pay for private schools. Still, other families take advantage of magnet schools where students can qualify to learn at a campus that is outside of the area. Homeschooling is an option as well. Exercise your limited power of choice to send a message that you only send your kids to schools that offer a quality of education that you're happy with. Provide a stable home life. Schools need improvement. There is no denying that, but experts point out that schools aren't completely blamed for the high rates of high school dropouts and low rates of college completion. In fact, more than 2/3 of those surveyed in a public education.org study believe that parents and home life are to blame for these problems. Parents must provide a stable home life for students to find success, offering support and openly discussing goals for their future educational achievements. Get informed. Be an informed, active participant in school reform. Learn about the important issues not just in your own school district, but the state and nation. Read articles, books, and news. Even take part in meetings and conferences. You can even visit school staff development libraries to get access to educational publications like Educational Leadership and Education Week that can provide lots of insight. Find out what your kids think. School reform is all about the children, isn't it? So find out what exactly they think about problems, changes, and new reforms as they happen. They're much more likely to give their parents a straight scoop than a stranger or informational survey. Share what your kids' concerns and frustrations are. A child's voice can be very powerful in education reform. Take part in protests. Education protests and rallies are happening in a variety of different states, and you can add your voice to them by joining your own local gathering or supporting others far away. These can be a part of parent or community school reform groups or independent. Whatever the source, keep your ear to the group to find out how you can participate and share your views with the greater public. And lastly, vote. Although you can make a difference as a regular citizen, politicians make many of the important decisions in education. Are you happy with the officials who hold the responsibility of the child's education? Consider whether local, state, and national politicians are doing what you would like to see in education and vote accordingly.
I use and I saw this document for the following areas to reform education. For years, there has been a debate about the state of American education system. Year after year, our students are promoted national years. There's been an outcry over the cost of the foreign education, just saying it was common for least an argument. Employers demand there needs to be more focus on STEM education. Teachers demand the stop of constraints and the test tests. And parents demand an increase of funding for arts and music programs. A widely set of education reform proposals are all worth considering. There has been a major problem no one is talking about, which is the lack of real career preparation. Our children receive over a decade of education in K-12, but they have never taught how to transform the knowledge to the real world. There is little to no guidance on choosing a career or information to provide about. what different jobs are actually like. As a result, the education system is setting our children for failure. Once they complete high school, they take a start in the dark about what type of career they would like. As a result, many choose poorly and get stuck as a career they hate, or have to pay for educational, or have to pay for additional education and try again. If they are lucky, they will find a job they can tolerate, but the truth is that a large percent of our children are not getting into school. Research from the National Center for Education System have shown that 17% of young adults research from the National Center for Education Statistics have shown that 17% of young adults that don't graduate from high school. The Bureau of Labor Statistics found that 30% of those students who didn't graduate from high school in 2015 have not enrolled in college. Those young people are left to find a job or vocational school. Yet, K-12 administration focus solely on getting students into college rather than preparing them for the choices they will face when they get there or when they enter the workforce. It is no wonder the number one complaint students have about the education that there is no connection between the classroom and the real. Secondary school is no longer designed to help them succeed in their workforce, but it's meant to help them get into college with
Good morning. Thank you to all our advisors for their speeches. Education reform is full movement. It is Spartan's future. We need to act now, and this is what we need to do, and this is what we need to know. Educational reforms in the 1980s and 1960s and 1970s were started because they had to address the different issues. There was the nation at risk and other reports that concerned primarily with accountability and achievement. The first wave of reform occurred with many states increasing their graduation requirements, stopping curriculum mandates, and increased the use of standardized tests to measure student achievement. Increasingly, top-down reform was seen to be ineffective, however, and teachers were never brought into this kind of system. The second wave of reform targeted with the structure and processes of schools and handled more control and enhanced local schools, teachers, and communities. The triple theme of achievement, assessment, and accountability. Reforms remain highly bureaucratic and aimed at assessment, critics said, and teacher empowerment, site-based management of school choice and charter schools and tuition vouchers became more important. It was all about choice for the students. Now, when we see the school choice, it's seen as a panacea, non-bureaucratic, inexpensive, and fundamentally egalitarian, allowing market forces to shape school policy. It's controversial and highly political because it houses a lot of dispute. Should we favor choice over what our students necessarily need? Is what we want really what is needed at that time? What happens when there is no choice is that you lose motivation and students do not want to be a part of an education system anymore. Instead, when you have school choice, you have market-driven choice that increase satisfaction and increase educational opportunities for minority children. Choice parents are also more involved in their children's education, and as well, parents are more satisfied. What other reforms are there? There's school-to-business partnerships as well as school-to-work programs, school-based management, and teacher empowerment. The effective school movement starts with everyone being on the same page. Now, when it comes to teacher education, if we want to be more modernized and we have better programs for both our students and our teachers, there is perceived to be a lack of rigor and intellectual demands in teacher education programs. So if we are to really reform our education, we have to start with teachers. We need to attract and retain competent teacher candidates to educate the children because they are the future for tomorrow. We need to reorganize academic and professional components of teacher education in the undergraduate and graduate levels. We need to motivate students as well as teachers to have that relationship in which both will see a benefit from and be happy with the products. Now, why do we need to change our education in the US? Well, for starters, it will improve our economy, it will improve the standard of living, it will improve the quality of life, and it will improve the quality of our government and our society. Educated citizens make for a better country. And why is this not happening? Well, because we allow for the system to be corrupted and we allow for money to be considered instead of our students' benefits, which is why we need to act now. I hope that we can work together to create a solution in which everyone can have access to a worldwide education. Thank you.
That ends our part of the program. We're kind of short because they're taking tests this week. So I'm here trying to help out, and we taped that the other day. But you know, one thing it's kind of interesting if we try to look at both what we were talking about. It's eerily similar that in the United States and Iran we try to teach towards tests. Don't you agree?
Yeah.
Why do you think that's bad?
I agree that tests aren't a good way of measuring our knowledge because tests happen, for example, at a specific date. What matters is that we understand what we're learning, and we have a good knowledge of what we're all trying to learn. But when we put tests and exam and those are our standards of knowledge, that is like that's something that can be so relied on because for example, one day you aren't feeling that good, you don't remember things that you've studied, but you might know it better than someone else that has memorized it before the exam. That's why it's not a good standard.
Yeah, I was going to ask a question because I kind of knew before, but let me ask you this question. Explain to us through this conference exactly what type of tests you have to take to get into college and the length and what you're testing and how that rank depends on what college you get into.
Our test is called a concours. After studying a lot, and we have to give the exam from our last 3 years at high school. It consists of multiple choice questions that we have to answer. And what makes this exam really important is that the questions aren't that hard, but your skill in being fast and reading the questions fast and knowing ways of I don't know writing the solution faster. That's what counts, and that is not a reliable standard for measuring our knowledge because whoever writes faster, whoever can read faster, whoever has the faster solution, that person gets a better result. But someone might have better knowledge, they understand more deeply the lessons, but for example, their multiple question answering skills aren't that good, so that person doesn't get into good universities, and that's not fair.
Oh yeah. So your grades, no matter what your grades are, You can't get into college unless you do very, very well on those tests. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, our GPA is 35% of our result in the concours exam.
Okay. And do you have weighted GPA, or is all the grades on the same level? Depending on this, how hard the course. If you take a harder course, do you get more credit, or?
We don't choose courses in Iran. We have yes. We are forced to learn some courses in the school. For example, everyone that go to math, they must read math, physics, and some courses that they just yes. Same for every student that go to some fields.
Okay, so the way I understand is in the 9th grade, you pick a major. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Okay, and then once you pick that major, all your classes will be picked out for you for the rest of your high school, correct?
Yes.
And then you take a test, a standardized test over those of that classes that it's a national test, correct?
Yes.
Wow, that's crazy. Okay, excuse me, that didn't come out right. That's very nice. Okay.
So, for entering university, what's like in US?
Oh yeah, it's similar but a little bit different. In the United States, each state has their own rules, and because of that, because we have a federal system, we do have what's called Common Core, and I can't tell you exactly how many, but there's like 20 or 30 states that are in Common Core. And then back when President Bush was president, they passed a No Child Left Behind, so then they put standardized tests in each one. So our tests are a little bit different. About 5 years ago, a student in the state of Texas would have to pass 15 tests to graduate from high school. But the tests were taken right after the year you took it. So in the 9th grade, when you took English 1, you would take an English 1 test, and then you go on to the next level. The idea was originally that you wouldn't continue, but our testing companies are kind of going up and down. But today, we're in Texas, we're down to 5 tests you have to take, of which you have to pass 3 of them. So it's not as much, but then again, we still have the major tests, and then in Texas is a little bit different. If you graduate with a GPA in the top 10%, you automatically get into a school. So a lot will depend on your GPAs. And then if you don't make a top 10%, you have to score really well on either the ACT or SAT, which is a national standardized test to get into colleges. But it's still available, and most of our students end up going to college. So it's not near as strenuous as that. We are in a point where everybody is picking a major, but we've been doing that on and off for maybe the last 30 years. Texas is trying to require everyone to have a career of some sort. And it is always difficult to somebody go from 7th, 8th grade and say, well, I want to be a lawyer, but they don't want to speak, or I want to be a doctor and they faint at the sight of blood, or, I want to be a mathematician, but they can't add. People, what they want to do, that in the United States, we're influenced a lot by television. So people say, well, I want to do this, or I want to go to this one school because they have a good football team and not necessarily have a good thing to study. So I'm not so sure if we're getting out the good information. In the 8 or 9 years I've been working with your school, I've been so impressed with everyone's language skills that, you know, you must have a very good school.
Thank you. So I have some questions. What is your plan for train teachers to be effective teachers?
Boy, that's a great question. The problem is, I don't know if a person can be totally effective for everyone, and I think the question itself is kind of in an odd sense. We are trying to. I think one of your students actually pointed this out. We're trying to put a Band-Aid on a and give everybody here, Band-Aid. Okay. We're trying to put a Band-Aid on everyone's, and everyone to be treated the same, where if we want to be individuals, I don't think we can treat people as the same. And I think probably you go back to like Aristotle, and we should probably go back to teaching in very small groups instead of trying to put a large amount of people into a group thing. So what is an effective teacher? It would depend on the student. And sometimes a student can work really well with one person, and sometimes a student cannot. And I think I don't think in Texas here and in the United States, we give teachers tests. I know teachers that can pass a test, but as far as teaching effectiveness, they're much more effective on paper than they are in just like a student. And I think there should be something to communicate. I know I didn't really answer your question in a way, probably, but in a best sense, it's an art, not a science, and I don't think you can judge criteria-wise what is an effective teacher.
So teachers have to have some special certificate to work in schools?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. In the state of Texas, to give you an example, we have to take a general education test, and then you would take tests in your specific areas. So, for example, if you were going to teach geography, you would take a general education test for secondary level. Then you would take a world geography test. The world geography test would have 125 questions. If you took a social studies test, it would have 250 questions, and you had to pass that at least a 70% ratio. The education test would be a bunch of different scenarios. What would you do in this particular case? What would you do? And I have a daughter who teaches people how to become teachers, so pretty effective on that. I personally have like 11 certifications. So I have quite a few different certifications.
And do you get personality tests from students to make them in good groups?
Yeah, that would be really nice. In fact, I was teaching a class earlier, not probably about 5-10 years ago. We actually tried to put people together with a Briggs-Myers test and put different personalities and different learning styles together and then try to help out like that. That's actually very good. I don't think because of the test centered on anymore that it works as well. Here in Texas, we're doing a lot of group work. The problem with group work is what? What would you think the problem with group work is?
I think maybe students can't get along well with each other. So, and sometimes maybe some gaps between students in the knowledge level. So that will make some problems in group works. And even sometimes in a group, one people do a lot of work and one people will do nothing. So that's one of the disadvantages.
And another large disadvantage is we still test individually. So, you know, even though we do group work, if all your knowledge is not implied, but if all your knowledge is delivered through group work, but they test individually, not in a group, then it's like a football coach that is going out and practicing soccer every day, and then he goes out and plays Australian rules football, it's not even going to be the same, type of stuff. So, here in the States, I think we're setting up some disjoint because we're teaching in one way and we're testing in an entirely different way. So, with the grades coming one direction, everybody in the same group gets the same grade. Well, that's almost like communism because you take low motivated type of students and there's no real reason to try to succeed if everybody's going to get the same grade.
And as you know, in Iran, we can't have mixed school. In your opinion, which one is better to have, segregated or mixed school?
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to tell you a really weird story. There are public schools here in the state of Texas, in our city, Austin, that are going to single gender schools because they say that is the best way to learn. One of our close competitors in a lot of the academic events we do, Ann Richards, it's named after a former governor. It's a all-girls school here in Texas, in Austin. I know some of the teachers, some of the students are very, very, very sharp. They just opened up an all-boys school, or they'll be opening up an all-boys school next year here in Austin. There's a lot of advantage to have a single-gender school, but I think in the real-life world, we have to learn to work with genders. We have to work with different groups of people. That's one of the reasons I like video conferencing so well, is that you actually, not only should we have different genders with people, we should be able to communicate and have lessons with other countries, because I think we see more similarities than we do differences. And I think it's a better learning experience for people. I don't think it's real. I think it's too artificial just to have single gender. But there are some advantages. And I definitely think that for leadership responsibilities and some stuff, that single gender works really well. What do you think? What do you think? You've gone through it.
In my opinion, I like single gender schools because I think when school is mixed, students go in another way and don't focus on their education and studying. So,
well, let me ask you this question. In the United States, it's still difficult for a very, very sharp young lady to show how brilliant she is with a bunch of guys, because she doesn't really want to outshine the guys. So when you have a mixed classroom, you may have some very, very sharp female or women students that don't really want to perform at the level that they could, because they're more interested in trying to attract the attention of the gentleman than they are focusing on their studies. Is that what you're saying?
Well, hello back, and I have another question. And it is that, is there a lot of difference between public schools and private schools there?
Oh yeah. The main okay, I'll talk in generalities without talking in specifics. The main idea for if you notice in our little presentation, we talked about school choice. And that's something that our current administration is trying to do. But that's something that a lot of parents would love to do, because if you have money, you have choice. In Washington, D.C., the President of the United States, all the congressmen, no one sends their children to the Washington, D.C. public schools, because everyone perceives Washington, D.C. public schools to be really bad. Everyone goes to a private school. President Obama, the president before our president today, had two children in, I know one went to the Quaker school, and they were paying, I don't know, $35,000, $40,000, $45,000 a year for their child to go to a private school because they thought that that child could do really well. Now, the oldest child decided to take a year off, but then she got accepted into Harvard. Now, I do not think that she probably would have gotten into Harvard, even who she was, if she had gone through a public school. So I think that what's best for Barack Obama's family should be best for everyone. I don't think that we should have any particular person, but I, as a teacher, strongly believe in public education. I just think we need to improve the quality of public education to that level of private education. I don't think that here in the United States, we spend a tremendous amount of money on students. I mean, the money is, in a private school, our tuitions could cost much more than college in many colleges. And parents will do what they think is best to get their child the best opportunity as possible. But we have a lot of things in public education. As far as I know, I don't know too many private schools that are talking to you guys, and and stuff like that. So you can be very innovative in the public education, but you need to provide the best education possible. And a lot of public educations don't. They teach like what you said earlier, teach towards a test, and private education will give you a lot more different things.
So there's another thing too. Does it affect the university that they're going to be accepted in future? Like they're studying in a private school or public school, so they have the opportunity to be accepted in a better university or something like that?
Yeah, there is in the loan business, it's called redlining, and it's something that's not really talked long about here. But in education, we have the same type of deal. If you go to XYZ school, and I don't want to mention the name of school, and you go to another school, a college will accept you quicker, even if you had lower scores from this other school that has a better ranking. So the admission officers and stuff like that will look. Now, here in the state of Texas, we tried to do something a little bit different. They passed a bill where you could get automatic admission if you graduate in the top 10%. But our flagship university, University of Texas here in Austin, has gone down to 7%. Unfortunately, it's had the result of not helping but hurting the situation, because if you automatically get accepted into school, then there's no real advantage to improve your high school. So I think what they need to do is emphasize more improvement in high school. Like much of what you were talking about would work in the United States as well. That's what's so amazing to me, is that everything that you guys said today, if someone could listen to the United States, you could make a tremendous amount of money going around talking to people how to fix schools in America. And we're no different than the people in Iran. That's just the craziest thing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I had another question. Why do some people go to college before university, and what percentage choose going to college before university?
Okay, I'll tell you what happened. In English, in the United States, college and universities are used as the same word, okay? So we have, in the last 50 years, elevated almost every college to a university. At one time, universities were colleges, they were post-secondary opportunities that provided one or more colleges inside, like a college of dentistry, college of law, or like that. And colleges were junior colleges. This provide 2 years, and you went to the university. But then they've kind of changed it around. So here in the United States, it just almost became the same word. College would mean both 2-year and a 4-year program. And then in England, college is equivalent to a high school. So, it's a little bit different. So in the English system. So here in the States, we speak English, but with a forked tongue.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do
Thank
you have
you.
any?
Yeah, no, I had a couple of questions. In your vast abilities, and not okay, if everyone has to do the same curriculum as you guys do, how is it that you are so remarkably well versed in so many different languages and stuff? What emphasis in languages are there?
Well, the government, the educational system provides English for everyone. So if you go to a public school, most students will speak good English, fairly good English.
Wow.
Our school is a private school, and our school is a private school, so we started learning English from the 1st grade, but some schools start from the 7th grade, but still there's a fairly well level of English. And then our school also teaches French, and then German if you reach a certain level of English. But then there's a lot of people, well, in Iran, the second language is English, so it's best if you learn at least 2 or 3 languages. A lot of people around us speak even three languages. So, yeah.
Now, is Arabic spoken at all besides Farsi, or?
No, not at all. We, in some parts, in the parts close to countries who speak Arabic, so like in the southern parts of Iran, they do use Arabic, but the first language is always Persian. I mean, most parts of Iran speaks Persian.
And how would you classify your education that you're getting here? Do you think you're getting a very good education compared to other people in Iran, or are you getting about the same?
Yeah, no, we're getting much better education because our school doesn't only focus on testing. It really focuses on our passions and what we like, and they try to make us interact with others and learn how to debate, learn how to speak in public, these kind of things, which helps us a lot in university and further on in our lives, which I feel is very important.
Now, I just have one more question, and you may not be able to answer it, I don't know. But as a young woman learning all this material and stuff like this, do you want to try to institute some of the stuff that you're learning now into your society as you get older? And if you can't do that, how does that impact both now and then?
I don't quite get what.
Okay. What I was trying to say is that I've always met very articulate young women from your school that were very, seemed like they could be very successful in anything they wanted to do. Yeah. And in your society, some women cannot do certain jobs and stuff.
It is changing. It's really changing. Women are getting more powerful every day. We have a lot of rights right now, and there's not a rule against women working in some fields. It's just the preference of women. So a woman won't be a mind. I don't know. People think that in Iran or Islamic countries, women aren't doctors or women aren't lawyers, but it's not true. It's women are doctors, women are lawyers. They're just the preferences. Some women just prefer to be at home to take care of their kids, do these kind of things, housework, instead of working long hours. That's just a question of preference.
Yeah, I didn't know, like, in politics, could a woman ever be president of Iran?
Yes, it is possible. Women are candidates. It's just that they have to have a background which qualifies them, and there's not a lot of women who run for presidential elections.
Oh yeah, I think we have the same difficulty here. Is that if you don't have much of a candidate base, it's hard until you find the right person. Then once you find the right person, there's no telling. But we should appreciate this today. This has been really insightful because I had no, I mean, I had that suspicion, but I had no idea how eerily similar much of education really is all around the world. And it appears that maybe by doing more stuff like this, we could find out that we're much more similar than we are different.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
Okay, thank you so much, and we'll see you later.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.